The latest polling numbers from the territories are in, revealing a competitive race with shifting dynamics among the major parties. With a margin of error impacting all candidates, the actual standings could vary, making this a highly unpredictable contest. Let's break it all down. The Liberal Party of Canada, LPC, leads the race with 35% support, but when factoring in the 9% margin of error, their actual voter backing could range anywhere from 26% to 44%. This means their position is not as secure as it appears at first glance. However, the upward trend indicates growing momentum, suggesting that their recent strategies, policies, or campaign efforts may be resonating with voters. If this trend continues, the Liberals could solidify their lead in the region. The Conservative Party of Canada, CPC, currently holds 29% support, but with an 8% margin of error, their actual range is between 21% and 37%. While they remain a strong contender, the downward trend suggests they might be losing traction. This could be due to shifting voter priorities, recent political developments, or even local concerns specific to the territories. If this decline continues, they may struggle to compete with the Liberals for the top spot. Right on the Conservatives' heels, the New Democratic Party, NDP, stands at 28%, with the same 8% margin of error, placing their potential support between 20% and 36%. However, like the Conservatives, the NDP is also experiencing a downward trend. This indicates that they are struggling to maintain their voter base, possibly due to competition from the Liberals or strategic shift in voter preferences. If they fail to reverse this trend, they may find themselves further behind in the race. The Green Party of Canada, GPC, holds 6% support, but with a 5% margin of error, their real backing could be anywhere between 1% and 11%. While their numbers remain relatively low, their impact could still be significant in a tight race, especially if they pull support away from other parties or influence policy discussions. With the Liberals on the rise and both the Conservatives and NDP showing signs of decline, the political landscape in the territories remains highly fluid. The final outcome will depend on how these trends evolve in the coming weeks. Will the Liberals maintain their momentum? Can the Conservatives or NDP recover lost ground? And will the Green Party manage to increase its influence? The latest polling numbers from British Columbia are in, and they reveal a shifting political landscape. While the Conservatives remain in the lead, their support is declining, while both the Liberals and the NDP are gaining momentum. Let's break down the numbers. The Conservative Party of Canada, CPC, continue to hold the top spot with 40% support, but the 6% margin of error means their actual backing could be anywhere between 34% and 46%. However, the downward trend suggests they are losing ground, possibly due to policy concerns, shifting voter priorities, or competition from other parties. If this decline continues, they could face a tougher battle to maintain their lead. In second place, the Liberal Party of Canada, LPC, has 29% support with a 6% margin of error, placing their actual range between 23% and 35%. Unlike the Conservatives, the Liberals are showing an upward trend, indicating growing voter support. This could be due to policy appeals, strategic campaign efforts, or dissatisfaction with the leading party. If they continue this momentum, they may close the gap further. The New Democratic Party, NDP, currently holds 21% support, with a 5% margin of error, meaning their real support could be between 16% and 26%. Like the Liberals, the NDP is also experiencing an upward trend, suggesting a possible resurgence. If this growth continues, they could position themselves as a stronger alternative in the province. The Green Party of Canada, GPC, stands at 6%, with a 3% margin of error, meaning their true support could be anywhere between 3% and 9%. While their numbers remain modest, their presence could still influence the race, particularly in key ridings where small shifts in voter preference could make a difference. With Conservatives losing ground and both the Liberals and NDP gaining momentum, British Columbia is shaping up to be a battleground province. The final outcome will depend on how these trends develop in the weeks ahead. Can the Conservatives stop their decline? Will the Liberals close the gap? And can the NDP continue its upward trajectory? The latest polling numbers from Alberta are in, and while the Conservatives maintain a dominant lead, their support is slipping, while other parties, the Liberals, NDP, and PPC, are showing signs of growth. Let's take a closer look at the numbers. The Conservative Party of Canada, CPC, continues to hold a commanding lead in Alberta with 59% support, but with a 6% margin of error, their actual backing could range between 53% and 65%. Despite this strong showing, the downward trend suggests some voter erosion. While they remain the overwhelming favorite in the province, this dip in support could signal shifting dynamics, particularly in urban centers where opposition parties tend to perform better. The Liberal Party of Canada, LPC, stand at 17%, with a 4% margin of error, placing their actual support between 13% and 21%. Their upward trend suggests a modest but noticeable increase in backing. This could be due to changing voter demographics, targeted campaign efforts, or local concerns influencing preferences. While they remain far behind the Conservatives, any growth in Alberta is a win for the party. The New Democratic Party, NDP, is close behind the Liberals at 16%, also with a 4% margin of error, meaning their real support could range between 12% and 20%. Like the Liberals, the NDP is also experiencing an upward trend, indicating they are gaining traction, potentially among progressive and younger voters. While their path to victory in Alberta remains steep, any growth could be crucial in specific ridings. The People's Party of Canada, PPC, registers 3% support with a 3% margin of error, meaning their real backing could be anywhere between 0% and 6%. While still a small presence, the upward trend suggests they are making some gains, likely among voters dissatisfied with mainstream parties. While the Conservatives remain firmly in control of Alberta, their declining numbers suggest some shifting voter dynamics. Meanwhile, the Liberals and NDP are both gaining ground, possibly benefiting from discontent or strategic local campaigns. Even the PPC is seeing slight growth, indicating a fragmenting of right-leaning votes. The latest polling numbers from the Prairies are in, showing a strong Conservative lead, but with a downward trend. Meanwhile, the Liberals are gaining ground, while the NDP holds steady, and the PPC remains a minor player. Let's break it down. The Conservative Party of Canada, CPC, lead with 50% support, but with a 6% margin of error. Their actual backing could range between 44% and 56%. However, the downward trend suggests they are experiencing a decline in support. While they remain dominant in the region, this shift could indicate voter dissatisfaction or increased competition from other parties. The Liberal Party of Canada, LPC, are polling at 23% with a 5% margin of error, meaning their true support could be between 18% and 28%. Importantly, their upward trend suggests they are gaining traction, potentially benefiting from vote shifts in urban areas or dissatisfaction with the Conservative leadership. While still far behind, any increase in Prairie support could be crucial in key ridings. The New Democratic Party, NDP, holds 17% support with a 4% margin of error, placing their range between 13% and 21%. Unlike the other parties, the NDP is neither rising nor falling, suggesting a stable voter base. However, without upward momentum, they may struggle to challenge the Liberals for second place. The People's Party of Canada, PPC, sits at 3% support with a 3% margin of error, meaning their real support could be anywhere from 0% to 6%. While a small presence, their numbers remain steady, indicating a core group of committed voters but limited overall influence. With Conservatives still leading but trending downward and the Liberals gaining support, the political landscape in the prairies is shifting. The NDP remains stable, while the PPC holds a minor role in the region. The key question now is, will the Conservatives halt their decline or will the Liberals continue their upward trajectory? The latest polling numbers from Ontario reveal a tight race between the Conservatives and Liberals, with only a few points separating them. Meanwhile, the NDP struggles to gain ground, and the Green Party and PPC remain minor players. Let's break down the numbers. The Conservative Party of Canada, CPC, are currently leading in Ontario with 41% support, but with a 6% margin of error, their actual support could range between 35% and 47%. However, the downward trend indicates that they may be losing voter confidence. If this trend continues, they could face an even tougher battle against the surging Liberals. The Liberal Party of Canada, LPC, are close behind at 38%, with the same 6% margin of error, meaning their real support could be between 32% and 44%. The upward trend suggests they are gaining momentum, likely benefiting from shifting voter preferences in key battleground ridings. If this growth continues, they could overtake the Conservatives in Ontario. The New Democratic Party, NDP, is polling at 13% with a 4% margin of error, meaning their actual support falls between 9% and 17%. Unlike the Liberals, they are not seeing an upward trend, suggesting that their support remains stagnant. Without significant movement, they may struggle to make a major impact in Ontario. The Green Party of Canada, GPC, stands at 4%, with a 3% margin of error, meaning their real support could range from 1% to 7%. Their presence remains minor, and without an upward trend, their influence is likely limited to select ridings. The People's Party of Canada, PPC, is polling at 3%, also with a 3% margin of error, meaning their actual support could be between 0% and 6%. Like the Greens, their influence remains small, though they continue to appeal to a niche voter base. With the Conservatives losing ground and the Liberals gaining momentum, Ontario is shaping up to be a critical battleground province. The NDP remains stagnant, while the Greens and PPC hold minimal influence. The key question now is, will the Liberals manage to overtake the Conservatives, or can the CPC recover lost ground? As election day approaches, this race could go down to the wire. The latest polling numbers from Quebec show a highly competitive race, with the Liberals pulling ahead, the Bloc Québécois slipping, and the Conservatives also seeing a decline. Meanwhile, the NDP and Green Party remain in the lower single digits. Let's break it all down. The Liberal Party of Canada, LPC, lead in Quebec with 32% support, but with a 6% margin of error. Their actual support could range from 26% to 38%. Their upward trend suggests growing momentum, potentially fueled by support in Montreal and other urban areas. If this trend continues, they could further solidify their lead in the province. The Bloc Québécois, BQ, follows closely behind at 30%, with a 5% margin of error, meaning their actual support could be between 25% and 35%. However, their downward trend indicates that they are losing ground. This could be due to shifting voter priorities or strategic voting in key ridings. The Conservative Party of Canada, CPC, hold 24% support with a 4% margin of error, placing their real support between 20% and 28%. Like the Bloc, they are also seeing a downward trend, suggesting declining support. While they maintain a presence in Quebec, their path to major gains appears to be narrowing. The New Democratic Party, NDP, is polling at 9%, with a 3% margin of error, meaning their actual support falls between 6% and 12%. With no visible momentum, the party appears to be struggling to gain traction in the province. The Green Party of Canada, GPC, sits at 3%, with a 2% margin of error, placing their real support between 1% and 5%. While their impact remains minimal, they may still influence the outcome in select ridings. Quebec remains a crucial battleground, with the Liberals gaining momentum, the Bloc losing ground, and the Conservatives also seeing a decline. The NDP and Greens remain on the margins, with little movement. The big question now is, can the Bloc rebound, or will the Liberals continue to strengthen their lead? As election day nears, every shift in voter sentiment will be critical. The latest polling numbers from Atlantic Canada show a tight race between the Liberals and Conservatives, with the Liberals pulling ahead while the Conservatives face a decline. Meanwhile, the NDP struggles to gain ground, and the Greens remain a minor player. Let's break it all down. The Liberal Party of Canada, LPC, lead with 44% support, but with a 7% margin of error, their actual support could range between 37% and 51%. Their upward trend suggests they are gaining momentum in the region, possibly reclaiming support in key ridings. If this trend holds, they could further strengthen their position heading into election day. The Conservative Party of Canada, CPC, follow closely behind at 36%, with a 6% margin of error, meaning their real support could be between 30% and 42%. However, their downward trend suggests they are losing ground, possibly due to shifting voter preferences or policy concerns. While they remain competitive, they may need to regain lost support to challenge the Liberals effectively. The New Democratic Party, NDP, is polling at 13% with a 4% margin of error, placing their actual support between 9% and 17%. With no noticeable trend up or down, their support appears stable, but not strong enough to mount a serious challenge in the region. The Green Party of Canada, GPC, stands at 4% with a 2% margin of error, meaning their actual support could range from 2% to 6%. While they continue to hold a small presence in the region, their influence is likely limited to select ridings. Atlantic Canada is shaping up to be a crucial battleground, with the Liberals gaining momentum and the Conservatives slipping. Meanwhile, the NDP remains stagnant, and the Greens hold minimal influence. The key question now is, can the Conservatives recover lost ground, or will the Liberals continue their surge? With election day approaching, every percentage point will matter in this competitive region.